Good morning. Lord, help me with this video because I actually have no idea what I'm going to say. In Jesus' name, amen. So, yeah, I got just a jumble of things, but I got some time and the urge to make a video. So, here we go. Um, yeah, so what should I start with? I guess, okay, so there's this video game that came out last year, or I don't know, it's been a little over a year maybe now. But it's really, really popular. It's like, oh my gosh, it's one of the best games ever made, blah, blah, blah. It's called Elden Ring, and it's like a fantasy world, like, what do you call it? It's like a open world thing. And it's very, it's really hard to describe. Like, it's a very common genre of video game. It's like medieval. It's taking from a lot of different things. It's very Game of Thrones esque, but as far as like the technology and the time period that you're in, it's like a medieval time, swords, bow and arrow type thing. And then there's magic, sorcery, all these other things. And what makes the game really unique is the amount of detail that has gone into the lore of the game. And you can really get sucked into the lore because it just seems really interesting. And it is pretty, they definitely put a lot of thought and detail into these things. And, um, I imagine a lot of it is pulled from actual history. A lot of it is pulled from just other fantasy stories and fantasy writers who have built worlds already. And sort of picking and taking from that. I mean, I don't know that much about the genres, but I imagine that that's what they're doing. So I don't think that it's not something that they built from scratch. I'm pretty sure that there's some original stuff mixed in with some, you know, Lord of the Rings, Game of Thrones, other people that are famous in that genre that people don't know about. Some science fiction stuff probably too. Skyrim is another game that is very similar, and it's sort of groundbreaking. The amount of storytelling that's in it and all that stuff. So, but I've been really thinking a lot about it because it makes me think, like, is this what people hear when they hear about like religions, other religions in other parts of the world? Like when people say, "Oh, we should respect everybody's beliefs," and but they themselves don't have any beliefs. Like I never have been able to get. I've never even tried to get into that mind because I just don't even. I'm in my own mind. Why do I need to get into someone else's? But what it must look like to people who don't have any beliefs and they're just going through life. Because there's like these, there'll be a whole sect that's devoted to, the order, and it's like they're the sword and shield soldiers who guard the kingdom thing, and it's all the golden order, and they have all of this like magic, and it's not even. I mean, the magic things that they have are related to seals and blessings and protection things and healing spells and all this stuff. And then there's just like the straight on sorcerer magi people, and they have a school and they teach sorcery there and wizardry there, and there's weird stuff going on in there. And then there's another one that's like, I don't know, it's related to like the stars and gravity, and it's all gravity magic, and they all have like different colors to delineate which is which. And then there's the blood people, and they do blood magic and they do blood sorcery, and like each one of these fields has this like very elaborate lore that is attached to it. And then there's like the frenzy flame, and it's like literally just madness. And if you use it too long, you go crazy, and like all of these different things. And honestly, it's a little overkill, like after when you really step back from it. But it's very engaging. You're like, okay, well, I want to see like. I want to see if I can find like the backstory on the stuff, because you just wonder how far back it goes, how much thought that they really put into these things. And of course, you know, part of it is um, what the developers themselves have done, and the other part is just content creators and other just wackadoo fanatic people who are just like making this be more than it is, and just like basically helping create this stuff, because it's like, well, maybe they're trying to figure out the motivations of these whatever characters, and why certain things. But the storylines are just insane. Like, I mean, it gets to the point where and of course there's supposed to be like a overarching figure that's supposed to be like God, but then like, and that's obviously a woman, and then but sometimes it's a dude, and um she had some twins by himself. Like, it just gets really, but then it's like, well, but there's a god before that god, and that made the Elden Ring, and then then there's this beast that's the embodiment of the ring, and then who made him, we don't know. And oh, and then there's this tree, this earth tree, that's like this huge tree that you could see like no matter where you are in the game, it's in the background, and it's supposed to be like what births these souls or something. And it's just really interesting because like the story, every single story is just like super elaborate, and just this sweeping tale of glory or whatever, or jealousy or whatever. And obviously mythology is a big part of it, and but at the same time, I don't know, I won't get into that. But um so a lot of these people are, they end up, they're related, or it's mother and daughter, or they're all like, basically the reason why you're doing all this stuff has to do with like all of these siblings that are like vying for power, and you got to beat these siblings of this main god. So they're basically like these demigod people that are really hard to beat and stuff. And but just, and then you've got these like priest type people in the game that are they're like the devout monastery people, and like they have a certain type of power too. And then they do incantations, and uh the one particular sect, they go around, they're like wearing these like meager robes, and they're blindfolded, and like they have like this wooden circle thing around them, like just around their neck like this, that I guess is self-imposed. And it's very much like, is this what people think of like the history of the world is like? I don't know. It just is, it's over the top, and it's supposed to be entertaining, but I just see like the seeds of things. And of course, no one knows what they're doing. The gods are not even, they're making these huge mistakes, and they're just as fallible as humans. They're just super super powerful. And at first they thought the Earth Tree was eternal. Turns out it's dying. It's not eternal, and it's just this. Uh, Everything is happening at the expense of the humans that are just trying to like go to work, and like everything is crumbling down because these gods are fighting. And I think it really does reflect like the most um, sort of pessimistic view of what everything is that they've made a world where it's not even these false religions, like everything that they believe in exists, but it's the fact that the things that they believe in are flawed and just lead to more problems. And so there's this idea that even if you serve the blood dragon god of the snake, whatever, like, and he's and you meet him, once you get to actually meet him, and you're usually fighting him, he's this grotesque psychopath thing, and he's got all of these followers that are just too, they're just drinking the Kool-Aid and devoted to him. And then you go someplace else, and maybe there's one that's a little more nicer, but she's not any closer to the answers either. And it's very, I don't know, it's nihilistic, but people love to speculate and about what these gods are doing. It's very strange. Um, Not strange. I mean, I recognize the impulse, but it's like the more flawed and ridiculous and improbable it is, the more that people are drawn to it and want to be like pretend to be a part of it. It's really, I don't know. And it's one of those things that if you need to just go, oh, well, it's all fun and games, and dismiss it like last minute, you can. And then that's just the end of it. Like there's nothing you can say about it. But, I just find it interesting that the things that draw people in, and, and how, yeah, there are definitely some similarities, and in the sense of like, maybe not the structure of like what the people worship, but just the, having this variety of things. And then you travel a little bit further, and now it's like, oh no, this is the religion. You travel a little further, and it's like, no, this is what we worship. Or actually, a lot of times it's, you travel a place and everybody is just, the world is breaking down in that particular part because of some geostorm that they started when they fought. And so people are just trying to like live in their cabins or whatever. But they're like, yeah, the super radical people that believe in the whatever, they are down the street. They're in that castle over there. And there's always like this subset of people that are just sort of the pawns of the demigods that drive the story forward. And it just seems like just this orgy of of commentary on belief systems, and uh, what people believe is what it's doing on the earth to me. So, I mean, obviously, you need a video game to be exciting and fun and do all this stuff, but even something like Skyrim, which is really just focused on a single phenomenon of, it was a little bit more like a social commentary, because you had like different races of things that you could be. Like you could be a man, you could be an elf, you could be a dark elf, you could be I can't believe I remember those off the top of my head. You could be, I don't know, something else, a dwarf, you could be something else. And, everything had powers. You had like these advantages, you had disadvantages. These people didn't get along with these people anymore, or whatever. So that was like the big draw of the game. And then there was really just one major storyline about dragons and stuff. And in this game, there's like all these different, it represents like all these different roads you could go down, all these different decisions you can make as how the game ends. And, you could join the Order of the Frenzied Flame, or you can join the this, or join the Round Table, or join the Volcano Manor, blah blah blah. And so it necessitated that there'd be like multiple different ways to go, and then this order believed that the other one was blasphemous, and these people believed that neither one of them had the understanding. So so I understand that that sort of the theology is hidden within the game, but um it really just highlighted like a lot of the things that people take for granted, like in our reality, because um, you know, while I understand that there's other beliefs about what the world is. Um, Today we're talking about what I know that the world is, and the world is the creation of a single God, and that is reflected. Every single thing about him is reflected in our creation, and like people take that for granted, which is very clear from the way this game was created, because people were still marrying and being given in marriage and all of these things. Like, um, was there? I don't think there were seasons or anything like that, but the fact that the gods were turning themselves to different genders and all of this stuff, which is just whatever, chalk it up to the devil, whatever, just made up stuff. But they didn't bother to try and reflect that in the world, because more than likely that just comes from modern belief system of, well, there's evolution and then there's just the stuff that we believe, and they're not together. It's just that this world is this world, and then people also are doing, which doesn't make any sense, honestly. But and it's very similar to this game, where the game doesn't make any sense, but it's so detailed that you really want to believe that it's going somewhere. Uh, but it's really just a lot of like uh, bloviating about. There's one particular thing that I'm thinking of where this person has his this crisis of faith, where he's forced to like reconcile like that the thing that he's serving is like wanting him to do something that he thinks is morally not right. And it causes this schism and all this stuff, and it's like it's just a lot of, it's like being back in college, honestly, and just going to the same class 5 times a day of just people in love with their own ideas. And the Bible talks a little bit about, vain imaginings and clever arguments. And, particularly Paul, who was sort of at the birth of that whole thing, where there's the Greeks sitting around talking about ideas all day long. And that's like the stuff that our society is born in. So he's talking about like, it's very dismissive. He doesn't really spend a lot of time on it, but we all kind of know the tendency we have to just sort of fall in love with our own ability to reason stuff to death. And it doesn't go anywhere, but we have all these open-ended questions, and we just sound smart to each other and congratulate ourselves and pat ourselves on the back for really looking at something at all angles. And it's like, well, while you're doing all that, when you're done with all that, as my husband likes to say, there's a real world out here that needs tending to. And so much of God is in what we create, or what is created here. Like the fact that we the way that marriage is and the way that rearing children is. Like, I just had this weird thought of like, because he could have made it any type of way. So the choices, as I've said before, are giving you information. And like, he could have made it where, the way that if we had a parent, a parent every 3 years that just came along, and then for a season, 3 months, 3 years, whatever, and then left, and then we got another one, and then that one left, and then we got another one, and then that one left, and we got another one, and then the first one came back after that, and we would go, oh, okay, like this is modeled after the seasons, like we're in the parenting season, like it would change our language. Our language would be constructed around what already exists in the earth. Like everything relates to itself, and that is such a huge, 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 major piece of information. The fact that this world can be understood at all, like all of these things that people just go, yeah, 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 because they don't know. It's very important to know what to value. Like just having a bunch of knowledge is not is a nightmare if you don't know what the most valuable things are. And so it's so like fundamental that it's kind of people. It's like it's so fundamental that you ignore it, and then when you ignore it, you're in trouble because you've missed something that's fundamental. But we go, oh, it's so fundamental that it's not important. Like it's really weird. It's like, no, the more important thing is the snazzy thing that I can't really figure out and that I'm going to get wrong because I forgot the fundamentals at home and didn't bring them because I didn't need them because they're just boring. And there's so much of it and it's not even rare. So it's really interesting how we mess ourselves up. Like I don't think it can really be reiterated enough, like how flawed we are. Like it's just a constant Three Stooges, like Charlie Chaplin silent movie of stuntman greatness, because that's what we are doing. Like it is a miracle that we get anything figured out, and like we get stuff figured out, and then it'll get lost to time after a while. Like it's just so it's kind of laughable, honestly. And so it's really important to keep that in mind so that we can just not be so hard on everybody because we just need to be like, oh, you left it at home. Oh, you forgot to put your pants on. No big deal. Like, and that's humility, really. Um, so even when we're figuring these big things out and we're like, and I see this all the time. I was actually going to mention it in a different video, but I guess I can sort of talk about it. But I see a lot of videos pop up about like people trying to warn people about this movement or that movement or what this pastor said and how it's going to lead you down a road. And it's like, um, yeah, like to do all of that is to agree that we almost have the whole thing and we can't let this dangerous thing in because it will ruin the thing that we have already. And it's like that's not even it's really not worth doing that. Like, and I know that people worry about, oh, well, this pastor or this person has this many people under their influence listening to them and it's so dangerous. This is a dangerous idea. First of all, you don't even know if it's really a dangerous idea. Like I've heard very few, at this stage in my life, I've heard very few dangerous ideas. I've heard very few dangerous ideas that are more dangerous than you being a liar or a cheater or, you having, spreading your sexual immorality and being a carrier of like like just sexual immorality is toppling the world. Like, and we all, it's not that we don't take it seriously, but we all understand that people, sleep with other people and it's just common. But like, this is something that like God says about like where Paul says this is the only sin where you're sinning against your own body. And I think I've talked a little bit about uh, the idea of like in the spirit realm, like what the spirit is getting us to do, what the demons are getting us to do. And it's not just like, oh, the devil and the pitchfork, and he's just trying to get us to like participate in evil. Like it's a very sophisticated system of like trying to get us compromised and corrupted so that they can find a way in. And it's like a virus. And so there are certain things that are hard to get an entire society to do to become compromised. And when you have something like sexual immorality, which there's a lot of baggage for us, but for them, it's just a means of getting to getting you to do their bidding. So if they need you to be compromised and you to make other people compromise, then all I got to do is entice you to do the stuff. Um, so in that sense, like sexual immorality is just, I mean, and it's something that we naturally hide. And even if we're not like, that there's no shame around it, it's like, well, this is our private life. So it's just kind of like, it's like the most moldiest mold conditions that have ever conditioned. So something like that is doing way more damage than you talking about baptizing babies at birth is okay. Like, I don't want to hear your 27-minute video about why we gotta like why you found 5 years ago in a video where he said that you know there's hell isn't necessarily hot. Like, okay, so like please understand, like we don't know what we're talking about. God has to reveal everything into us. Occasionally we will experience something and that will give us the information. And even then, which I see happen a lot, is we experience something and we misinterpret what we've experienced. Where people will be like, yeah, well, when I was in New Age, we laid hands on people to when we wanted to transfer energy. So that's demonic. So anytime you go into a church and you see people laying hands on people, they're practicing New Age. Okay, no, laying on of hands is in the Bible. Like that's what, and God literally says to do it. So from that, what I would probably do is back up and deduce and go, okay, God says laying on of hands, and you experienced when you were in a demonic practice that they too laid on hands. I'm going to go with maybe laying on of hands as sort of a general thing in the spirit that is done and can either be done in the wrong spirit or the right spirit. And, the demons and the devil is generally just after permission. So, yeah, I can see them just pretending like something is great so they can get your permission. And also, I can see like it actually genuinely being a good thing and God wanting to do it too. Like, but people, for whatever reason, they don't. It's never that nuance. It's like I saw that in the movie about the Exorcist and it was bad, and we're doing that in church. It's bad. I don't know, but yeah, I'm seeing a lot of the attack things of like we don't need to do this, and this ministry is not of God, and like just completely like blocking out whole things. And you know what, like if you're gonna post a video, okay, fine, but I'm not gonna get all up in arms about it and be like, oh, she has some revelation. Let me listen. Like, um, we worship God. So I'm gonna take or leave your insight on it, because whatever I can, if it's true, I can get it from God as well. And that's the other thing that we sort of do, where then it becomes this backbiting frenzy of, no, he's wrong, no, she's wrong, no, he's wrong, no, she's wrong. And it's like, any one of y'all could ask God at any point, and if he's gonna tell you, how bad do you want the information? Because that really just comes down to most things. Like, if you really, really want to know, he'll tell you. If you ask and you haven't gotten the answer in 24 hours, keep asking. If you haven't got the answer, then, like, typically he'll tell you if there's something more you need to do to find that out, because you don't know the clearance of the information that you're trying to ask necessarily. Sometimes the easiest way is to go through it. That's another thing. When people are like, when people try to, like, even if they're trying to genuinely help you in church or something, and they're like, I don't think you should be listening to that anymore. I don't think you should be doing that. I don't think you should be doing that. They might be right. It might be like something based on something that they have themselves have experienced. Sometimes you hear them and you can feel the sort of God sort of like attesting to what they're saying, and you know that that's God talking to you. And then sometimes you're not sure, and then sometimes you don't feel anything. And it's like, not only should that person be allowed to say what they feel like is going to help you, the person who receives it, should be allowed to be like, okay, well, I'm going to use my own discernment to figure that out. Appreciate the note. And however long if they never listen to you, or however long it takes for them, maybe they have to go through it, and then they go, man, you was right about that. We like the you got to allow people to do everything. You got to allow the person to speak. You got to allow the person to hear you and not take it, because the idea that we are going to be the ones that usher in the greatness, and if only you listen to that one person, you would be. It's like, no, we're all grasping at straws. That will never change. Like, God doesn't come and save us because we're so super keen, and if we just had if we just knew the truth, he could really turn us around. Like, no, we're a hot mess till we get to heaven. We're going to be a hot mess till we get to heaven. He's going to use our hot messness now to get us to learn some stuff, to learn patience and learn, like, all of these lovely lessons, and then he can give us rewards for that, and then we can have depth of character, whatever. But it's not like, it's never going to be about you having the whatever. But by and large, we're just doing too much all the time, and I wish more people, like, understood how this works. Like, if you feel like you need to out somebody, or like, listen to this blasphemous thing that this pastor said on this whatever, and a lot of times it's just, you're a Christian, you have a platform, you got people listening to you, or whatever, and you say something out of pocket, just like people in the world say stuff out of pocket, and then they got to go back and apologize. Now, they do it because they don't want their entire thing to crumble, and they want to keep getting paid, so they apologize. Sometimes they're genuine about it. Sometimes you can see that, but generally you never know. And typically, you can sort of assume that is the gist. It's like, I want this thing to keep going. I want this gravy train to keep going, and I'm sorry that I almost messed up my gravy train. And then we accept the apology and we keep it pushing. And so, a lot of times, like, we think that, oh my gosh, this person said this one wrong thing, had this one wrong opinion, that means this guy shouldn't even be in ministry. It's like, no, he just said something weird. Well, everybody was listening. And I imagine that a lot of us Christians still have weird opinions. And, that's where a lot of the pretense comes from, because um, there's actually quite a bit of diversity of thought among Christians. but it's really, really, it's very scary because you just don't know how people are going to respond, and people are you're bringing together people of all these different backgrounds. Somebody like me who's never been around, who wasn't around alcohol till she was 21, and you got somebody else who grew up in a house where it was just like they had to make their mom drinks, and you know was shown porn by their dad. You know what I'm saying? But you're all believers, and so you're just freaking out because your neighbor, you're telling the story at your Bible study about how your neighbor, had tried to tell you a story about this guy that she went on a date with, and she kissed him, and the other person's like that. So it's really just like, this is like, it's almost, you can almost consider this like intentional, because it's just so rife with like hot messness that it's like, okay, well, God must have like intended this to become a complete sitcom, because I can't see how this could be anything else. And a lot of this thing about us being known by our love for each other and all that, and we think that that's about, oh, it's just about lovey-dovey feelings and super, and like, oh, I support you, blah blah blah, and it's really just about, you know it's probably more about like the same thing when you're in a marriage and you just kind of grow to accept each other's weirdness and almost absorb it, and almost like, um, defend it. It's like, I don't even know if I'm supposed to be helping you while you do this weird thing, but it's like he likes to dumpster dive, or he likes to, you know, shoplift, and it's like, you can't do that. He's like, help me, like, put this in your pocket. You're like, what? You just find out 2 years in the marriage that he likes to shoplift, just little things, just chapstick, and you're just like, you got a few seconds to come up with what you should do. It doesn't come, and then you end up, next thing you know, you're shoplift buddies. And it's like, well, I don't even know if this is gonna, we're probably not gonna make it because this is ridiculous. And then either God addresses it, and, or, you pray and you pray and you pray, whatever. It's like you're going to get to heaven. You're not going to get to heaven with your slate clean. You're going to be all type of messed up. Like, but the point is, what God is looking at is where you learned to love, where you learned to do the things of God. Like, where is God in this stuff? And it seems kind of nitpicky and hard, but like when you look at like people in the world and how they live, and how it's just literally people just sucking up the resources until they die, like, it's hard to see the difference when just on the outside. But like, you just really think like, am I really doing anything different? Like, I'm just, and then, some people, they leave the church, they go out in the world, and they go, oh yeah, it is different. It's real different. So anyway, that's kind of weird that those two things came together in a video, but I feel like I'm pretty much done with that. And yeah, okay, y'all be blessed, I guess.